the third week of the Detox Holiday Classic. And today we're going to talk a little bit about eating and diets and different types of those. So we're going to talk about different eating habits. We're going to talk about meal timing, including different types of dietary ways to plan meals. And then we'll also talk about like tips for helping to eat for supporting health. So just wanted to start out with a quote. So this is eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. And this quote is by Adele Davis. She is one of probably the most famous nutritionists from the United States, kind of in like the early 1900s. And so just for eating habits in general, many people have poor eating habits, and many more people never even think about their eating habits. They just eat food. And so some of these poor eating habits, just a quick sample of these: eating while stressed, eating too fast or not chewing enough, always cleaning your plate, regardless of how full you might be, and then eating when you're not hungry. And these poor eating habits can contribute to things like overeating, stress eating, eating for like emotional stuff. So those are usually times where we have cravings and reach for those things that are like cakes, candies, sugars, sweets. Eating while stressed, that puts us kind of in that fight-flight response. And that's when we slow down our digestion so we don't properly absorb nutrients if we're too stressed when we're eating. If we're not chewing our food all the way, then we're not actually breaking it down. That mechanical chewing motion helps to break down food so that the enzymes in the stomach acid have a chance to work better. The always cleaning your plate, that just tends to lead us to overeating. And if you're eating when you're not hungry, then you're eating and you're not really doing it to support your health. You're just eating. And so there's a bunch of different ways you can improve your eating habits. And these are all taken from the CDC. So the CDC has a lot of great resources on these things. And so basically it's like, you don't want to just do a sudden radical change. So don't just like decide like, oh, I'm just going to do a 48-hour fast, and you've never done something like that before. It's not really a good idea to just drastically change the way you eat all the time, and it's not going to be successful in the long run. So we really want to have these ways that you can permanently improve your eating habits. And so in order to do that, you have to really kind of think about what your eating habits are and then what you can do to help to improve them. And so from the CDC, they have this 3R method: reflect, replace, and reinforce. So you take a look and examine your eating habits, the good and the bad ones. And if you have any triggers for unhealthy eating, so like stress and emotions and comfort foods, and then you try to replace the unhealthy habits with ones that are more healthy. And then you just reinforce that constantly. So if you do something well, then you can reinforce it, reward yourself, do something small, make sure you're feeling successful with that. We're going to talk a little bit about the meal timings. This is kind of like when you're eating your meals. And so there's the 3 square meals idea that kind of we've heard about when we were kids and growing up, and 3 square meals a day, that's what's healthy. There's also intermittent fasting and then grazing. And so this 3 square meals idea, that's relatively recent as far as if we look at how people have eaten their food and meal times, if we look at it historically. Usually the common recommendations now from nutritionists is even to have snacks in between these meals to help to stabilize blood sugar throughout and for energy. And so really this 3 square meals idea is like 3 square meals plus 2 or more snacks. So you're really eating 5 or 6 times a day with that, which this is an easy way to overeat as well. So with the 3 square meals idea, breakfast, that really became a popular or a more important meal for many people with the Industrial Revolution. And we had to have breakfast because you had to eat something so you had enough energy to go do your 12-hour workday in the factory. Dinner didn't become kind of a more common or kind of like regular meal for people until the development of artificial lights and electricity. So now we could actually cook and eat food after dark. Otherwise, primarily you would eat your meals earlier in the day when you had light. And so this 3 square meals thing, especially with all those in-between snacks, really easy for people to eat too much food, or they're just eating, when they have time. So this can lead to people eating, really early in the morning and then extremely late at night. And those are time periods that are going to make it a little bit harder for our digestion. The next one is kind of this intermittent fasting, and that's alternating between periods of eating and fasting. And fasting is where you're not eating foods, You can still have things like water or coffee or tea during this fasting time, but you're just not eating foods. So it's not about starving yourself. It's about cutting back on calories for short time periods. So if you're doing this intermittent fasting, you shouldn't feel like you're starving. You might feel like you're hungry, especially as you're getting used to it, but it's not like you're not drastically reducing your calories. You're not going from like 2,500 or 3,000 calories a day to 1,200 calories for a day. You're just reducing the time period of when you're eating your calories. And so this is an alternative way of dieting that is different than diets that are based on calorie restriction, so just cutting down your calories, or diets based on like nutrient composition, things like Atkins diet, which is really high in like proteins or fats, or like a vegetarian or vegan diet. In intermittent fasting, you're not changing the foods you eat, you just are changing when you're eating them. And the key mechanism in intermittent fasting and what it's trying to do is that it's trying to switch the body back and forth, this metabolic switching between using energy from glucose stored in the liver to doing this ketone metabolism. And the ketones are what happens when we break down fat. And so switching back and forth between using glucose for energy and using fat for energy. And so intermittent fasting has been studied and studied. There's a lot of benefits for intermittent fasting. It's been shown that it can help lower blood glucose, helping to reduce insulin resistance and reducing insulin requirements. So this can be really helpful for people with blood sugar issues. It's been helpful for weight loss. It helps to decrease inflammation in the body. It can help reduce the risks of a lot of different cancers. It can help to lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure. It's even been shown to help to improve brain health through like neurogenesis and helping to support the brain's ability to kind of like manage itself. And it also has been shown to almost have like anti-aging properties as well too. And so there's a number of different ways that there are protocols for intermittent fasting, and these are some of the more common ones up here. We have alternate day fasting, and that's basically so you're eating every other day kind of in this 12-hour window. So you're basically going 36 hours. So like a day plus kind of the morning and night for sleep over that day without eating. So about 36 hours of no food and then 12-hour window where you can eat your meals. There's the 5 to 2 day intermittent fasting. And this is where you eat just your normal meals 5 days of the week, and 2 days you go a fast, so a 24-hour fast 2 days out of the week. There's a method called Lean Gains method, and this is for every day you have a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour window you eat food in. So for example, you would only eat food between the hours of like 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and everything else would be a complete fast. A variation on this is what's known as the warrior diet, and this one is 20 hours of fasting. You have a 4-hour window for your meals. There's a method called Eat, Stop, Eat, and that's basically where you just have a normal day, then you stop eating for a day, so a 24-hour fast, and then you have a normal day again. So this can be very similar to that 5 to 2 day intermittent fasting, except this one is just kind of, you can even alternate days. You can do more than just this 5-2. It's just you're kind of going every other day without eating. And then another form of intermittent fasting is just skipping meals. And this is really random and not generally a recommended way to do it. But if you just skip a meal or skip a couple of meals during a day, you're going to be doing an unplanned intermittent fast. And so the picture here, you can say sometimes recommended by nutritionists. And that's just because some of these longer fasting periods might be difficult or not advised for people with diabetes or blood sugar control issues. They might have to eat a little bit more frequently than some of these longer fasts. I took this from one of the studies just on PubMed talking about a bunch of different methods of meal timing and fasting and the things that they can affect. And so in the very center, the 3 different colors, we see fasting. That's doing fasting diets. There's CR, that stands for calorie restriction type diets. And then KD is a ketogenic type diet. And the different arrows that point to the different things, so like inflammation, helping with the immune system, helping with the microbiome in the gut. The different arrows kind of show how much each of those diets can help to stimulate or push those processes. And so just looking at this, you can kind of see like how much fasting can really help to benefit these. Like pretty much all the green arrows are pretty large. The larger the arrow, kind of the more it helps with that. And so I just thought this was really cool as a way to compare the different diets and how they have these effects on our different body systems. And so the other type of common way that people can do meal timing is the grazing method. And so grazing is just where we have smaller, more frequent meals kind of throughout the day. So it's lots of small meals, lots of snacks. You're just kind of, you're never going a long period of time without food. And this generally leads to higher sustained energy throughout the day. For many people, they're also going to have a higher and improved protein intake throughout the day, because most of these smaller snacks are really meant to be more protein based. So like nuts, nut butters, even like small like protein bars or energy bars. These more frequent meals can aid in a more efficient metabolism rather than having to try to digest and absorb one larger meal or a couple larger meals through the day. They're just kind of running in kind of a continuous method with these smaller meals or smaller snacks. And this can help to provide more nutrients for muscle growth or repair. So this is really important a lot of times for athletes or people that are very active at work or have very physically demanding jobs. And so that they have these smaller, more frequent meals, they can get more energy and get more nutrients to where they need to be. These are basically mini meals or moderate size like meals, snacks. You're doing like pre and post workout meals or snacks. And this can be really actually difficult to do for people if they haven't used it before or haven't done it before, because you have all of these things, like you have food that's available all these days, and you don't just want to reach for unhealthy snacks. So you really want to have healthy snacks that are kind of prepared and ready to go ahead of time. So if you're doing more of this grazing method, it's recommended to do some meal prep, or at least prep some of these snacks or have these things ready to go. That way you know what to grab, when to grab it, so you're not having to worry about, I have to cook or I have to prepare food all day long. And this picture also comes from that PubMed study, just in the different diets. And this is kind of comparing and contrasting the different responses to if we're doing kind of 2 or 3 meals. So this is kind of that 3 square meals, like, or like a type of intermittent fasting diet, versus having like the 6+ meals throughout the day where we're like skipping things. And so this can just show how different things are done. And so on the left-hand side, you can kind of see that we have this kind of lean, looks like they're a very fit silhouette person where they're having like 2 to 3 meals, having breakfast, eating their last meal around, that's about 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They're not having that late night meal. They have plenty of protein, and they have this kind of fasting window, 12 to 16 hours. And then that's going to do some great things to the body as far as helping with insulin sensitivity, reducing cholesterol, decreasing hunger, reducing inflammation. And it's really helping to kind of stimulate kind of that whole like gut to brain axis. Whereas with on the right side, we can kind of see this silhouette of this man that looks like he's extremely obese, doesn't look healthy at all. And this is just, eating lots of meals throughout the day, not eating breakfast, eating very late at night, or eating your last meal late at night. This is going to be that high fat, high sugar diet, just grabbing whatever's around, junk food, mindless eating type things, and just having those reduced fasting periods. This is like, maybe it's a grazing type thing, but also it's just way too much. Like, these aren't going to be like those small, healthy meals and snacks. This is just going to be large meals all the time. And this is going to be reduced insulin sensitivity. You're going to have really high, low cholesterol, going to increase the hunger because you're always going to be this stimulation, lots of inflammation, lots of that sugar. It's going to even disrupt your circadian rhythm and affect your gut microbiome, just because now you're trying to always have digestion. You're always running that digestion cycle with these large meals that are going to be unhealthy, full of sugar, full of fats. And that's going to really affect us. And that's going to show how when we do that, that's going to really, the gut is basically driving what we're doing. So we're going to have that, our hunger hormones and everything in the gut and cravings driving our choices rather than we're dictating what our choices are. So some simple healthy eating tips. And again, like, we're talking about all these things we can do to be healthy, and naturopathic doctors and all of these things actually come from conventional stuff. So this is again from the CDC. These are their main things that they recommend as far as what you can do to eat healthy. Increase the fiber, increase your calcium and vitamin D, add more potassium, limit your added sugars, try to replace the saturated fats with kind of those healthier, mono and saturated fats, cutting back on sodium, and then aiming for a variety of colors. So that's that whole eat the rainbow part. And then this bottom part on the right here, this is just a screenshot from their site, just kind of talking about these healthy eating tips. And, it's easy to feel bombarded by all these healthy eating trends or whatever the newest fad diet is. But the good nutrition is really about consistently choosing healthy foods and beverages. And with healthy eating patterns, you can enjoy the foods and beverages that reflect all of your preferences, cultural traditions, and budgetary considerations. And I really like this because it really showed that regardless of who you are and what you enjoy, you can still eat healthy and improve your diet and your lifestyle. And so another suggestion here, and this again comes from the CDC, is that healthy eating is about balance. So talking about these comfort foods, these things that we go towards in times of like stress or emotional eating, or those things that the foods that just make us feel good. You can still have these even if you're having a healthy diet. And a lot of times some of these comfort foods are really unhealthy. They might be high in calories, fat, or added sugars. So the key takeaway here for that is basically just eat them once in a while and balance them with healthier foods and more physical activity. So some of the tips they're giving basically is just don't have them as often. If you're eating these every day, like cut back to once a week, cut back to once a month, and really make these kind of a special meal. And then the other thing you can do is just have smaller amounts of them too. So if you're having a chocolate bar, for example, maybe just only have half a bar or reduce it to a smaller size. And if these are meals that you cook at home, or even if you're getting them somewhere else, you can make it lower calorie, or you can add in healthier options as well too, just so you can make this an actual healthier choice rather than just having just as a junk food type choice. Mm-hmm. And so the main takeaway from this entire thing is that regardless of the diet that you choose to support your lifestyle, whether it's the intermittent fasting, whether you're having regular meals throughout the day, or you're going to be more on this grazing principle, is that you have to follow those healthy options, eat the healthy foods, and that you always have the power to make the good choices consistently. Everything that you put into your mouth is a choice. And so you have the choice to eat good, you have the choice on what to eat, and you have the choice on when to eat. And so kind of a short one today, just kind of wanted to give a quick overview on all the different ways that, some of the more common different types of healthy eating, some healthy eating tips, and then the different types of like meal timing and meal planning and why those might be either a good choice and what the benefits are. All right, so if you have any questions, this would be the time.